Basically from the sign of checking his first temperature, when we found out it was about 38, to him passing away, including going to 2 hospitals, was about 17 hours.
The germs that cause life-threatening infectious diseases are invisible. They are an unwanted gift that you and I give to our children, our families and friends. The protection of our children, our community's children, is such a high priority. In fact, it's a necessity. Over the past 50 years, advanced countries in Europe, North America, Australia have enjoyed high levels of immunisation. And as a consequence, we've been able to protect against many really serious infectious diseases. In our grandparents' day, polio would paralyse thousands. Rubella, German measles, would cause brain damage and heart defects in many thousands of others. And the most common cause of death in school-age children was diphtheria. Today, we are beginning to see outbreaks of once forgotten infectious diseases, like measles and whooping cough. Little lives are being unnecessarily lost. And other diseases which are normally thought of as relatively mild, like chickenpox and influenza, can also have deadly complications.
Why don't people know how vaccination works? Why don't adults know that they need a booster?
There's a dire need for parents and their communities to understand again the value and the need for protecting their children against all the diseases on the immunisation schedule. Vaccinations are safe, and it is vaccination that keeps children safe. Meningococcal disease is caused by a bacterium that many healthy people carry in their throats without even knowing it. In fact, 10% of people are quietly colonised by this germ, and the problem is that they can then pass it on to the vulnerable, like babies and those with immune deficiencies.
With Dylan, on the night that it happened, to give you some idea of how quick, it was probably the first 4 hours we're at the first hospital, and they sent us home. They couldn't pick up any significant signs, and they asked us to monitor him at home for deterioration or a rash and bring him back. We weren't aware of the seriousness of those signs, and we ended up seeing a little pinprick on the side of his neck. As soon as I picked him out of bed, he had the high-pitched cry, which sounded like he was quite in severe pain. We immediately took him to a GP. The GP recognised him straight away as septic, and by the time we got to the second hospital, which was 10 minutes away, they were ready for him. He was then moved to a much larger hospital, and in that small time he already had a cardiac arrest. They had to try and revive him. This is probably 12 hours after his fever, and 3 hours later he passed away in emergency at the Children's Hospital.
Pertussis, better known as whooping cough, is an acute illness caused by the Bordetella pertussis bacterium. It is spread by droplets when an infected person coughs or sneezes, or through direct contact with the secretions from the nose or people's hands.
Whooping cough killed our daughter Dana. She contracted it before 4 weeks of age, and she died in Brisbane Hospital.
I'd say whooping cough has devastated our family, that it seems to have just come out of nowhere, and we had a very healthy, beautiful little baby for 4 weeks, and then after 5 days in hospital we had a dead daughter. And for us it has been a journey of shock about what this disease can do. And I think the most heartbreaking thing for us has been that it is easily preventable, and we never got that chance to protect her.
Any wise words for your third born?
Don't date till you're 30.
She was born perfectly healthy, full term. We brought her home and she was a very healthy little baby, feeding well.
Putting on weight.
Putting on weight, and had two very excited older siblings and a loving family around her. We do not know how she caught it, and it, haunts us on a daily basis. We saw the ferocity of the cough, how violent it was, how every part of her body was shuddering with it. That's when we started thinking, well, why don't people know that this is what something called whooping cough can actually do? Why don't people know how vaccination works? Why don't adults know that they need a booster?
Unfortunately, whooping cough and all the issues related to it was something we were not aware of until she died.
Herd immunity is a term used to describe the protection that a group of people, like parents and grandparents, give by being vaccinated to the vulnerable, to the susceptible, to the babies in the family, in the community. Let's suppose that we have a group of people where some are dressed in white, meaning that they're susceptible and vulnerable to infectious diseases, like a baby or small child who's not immunised. Others are dressed in blue, and that means that they've been immunised and they're protected and they won't pass the infection on. And some others, again, are dressed in red, meaning that they can pass on an infection and they may have symptoms or they may not. Well, if we watch how these people mingle, if there are a lot of people dressed in blue, the vulnerable and susceptible baby, for example, who's dressed in white, is protected and never comes into contact with the person dressed in red, because there are so many blue people in between. However, if there are not many blue people and more red people, then it's much easier for the infection passed by the person dressed in red to go to the baby and infect that baby and make that baby ill. There are now some communities where immunisation rates have fallen so low that children are no longer protected by herd immunity. And so it's really important not only to be vaccinating our children, but adults as well.
Because it's about creating a cocoon for your child so that anyone they're coming into contact with is immune to these diseases.
It's important to understand that the childhood rates of vaccination in our local area are 67%. The adult vaccination rates are significantly lower. So our baby was born into an extremely dangerous and infectious environment.
Immunisation really is the safest and the most effective way to protect yourself and your family from serious infectious diseases. It's also true that immunisation is not without risk. The likelihood of a serious side effect from a vaccination is less than 1 in 100,000. But the likelihood of being seriously harmed if you contract a vaccine-preventable disease is more like 1 in 1,000. This means that unimmunised people who catch vaccine-preventable diseases are 100 times more likely to be seriously ill than from the vaccination itself. There's real hope. You can protect your children by building a chain of protection around your family. And there are 3 ways to do this. Learn about immunisation, take action, and care for those around you. You can learn about immunisation by speaking to your GP, visiting your local immunisation clinic, or speaking to a medical expert at your local hospital. Take action. Immunisation is the safest way to protect your child. So make an appointment to have your child immunised at your local immunisation clinic or at your GP, and make sure that you have an appointment too to catch up on any boosters that you as an adult need. And finally, care for those around you. Talk to the people in your own community in contact with you and your family. Encourage them to have themselves and their children vaccinated so that they can be a link in the chain of protection that protects not only your child but their children as well. So learn, act and care. Build your chain of protection for you and your family. Visit www.chainofprotection.org.